everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to go over 10 of my recommendations for autumnal reads and also some spooky vibe books. I know that we are at mid-October, but let's face it, spooky vibe season can go all the way throughout the year. For me, I love a little cozy, coffee and a good, book. And it is the perfect weather here where I'm at. We have a cold front in, and so it is much colder than it has been, which is such a relief because we went through a spell in July and August where nearly every day it was at 100 degrees or higher. And I was like, I'm just ready for autumn to get here. And September came and went, and it really didn't feel like autumn to me. And then finally, today I woke up and I was like, oh, it is a cozy day. I'm going to put on my joggers. I am going to lounge around and read a book, get me some coffee. And I wanted to come on here to go over some recommendations that I have for you that some you may have heard around the booktube community, but there are some that are not vastly, talked about, and I wanted to kind of promote those as well because I feel that they are wonderful books and they sometimes are overlooked because either they're not one of the most hyped books that are out there or they're indie authors who, maybe aren't as well known, but they're still amazing books that are worth your time. So we are going to go over all of that. So the first one that I'm going to go over is one of my most recent purchases, and it is Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shea Earnshaw. This book was absolutely fabulous. I just finished it up within the past week, and it follows, it's kind of like an ongoing story from The Nightmare Before Christmas, where you go back to Halloween Town, but you're from Sally's point of view, and it is about how the town is and how everything is going after, the ending of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I absolutely loved this book. I loved Sally's point of view. I loved going back into Halloween Town because let's face it, Nightmare Before Christmas is one of my favorite movies to ever watch. And so as soon as this came out, I picked it up. I wanted to read it as quick as possible. And, there's nothing better than in October visiting Halloween Town, learning about the characters some more. And, it was just a wonderful time. So I highly recommend, picking up this book, especially if you love Nightmare Before Christmas. This is a great continuation that Shea Earnshaw had put together. The next book is one of my most recent reads that's on my October TBR, and it is Shades of Rust and Ruin. Goodness, by A.G. Howard. So I had got sent this ARC copy from Bloomsbury, and it had already released in September, but I had just recently gotten it, so it wasn't something that I got beforehand. So I wanted to read this because it just gave me, October vibes. It gave me spooky vibes, just from the cover. And you are following Nyx, where her family is cursed by Halloween, where every year someone of the family dies every Halloween. And so she is trying to stay awake. She's trying to prevent this. And, she has her best friend Clary with her, which he, I guess, was kind of involved with her sister, or maybe her sister had a crush on him. And whenever her sister had died, now, there's like some sparks flying between Nyx and Clary. And, that was a pretty good read, but this was a YA fantasy horror book. The romance is there a little bit, but it's not the story of it. It is very much in the backdrop of the story, and I really, really loved this book. I actually started reading it. It was hard for me to get into a little bit because, I wasn't really much in the YA fantasy, mood to read. But as soon as I hit like maybe 15% of the way into this book, I was addicted. I couldn't stop. I needed to know. Now I can't wait for the continuation to come out. I think as of right now, it's the beginning of next year. So I can't wait to continue this. So if you want a YA fantasy horror book where you are trying to figure out why everyone in Nyx's family is dying. And, you want a little bit of a dash of romance in there, but nothing, that is spicy or anything like that. Pick this up. Such a great read. I was so happy. And check out my review later this month whenever I do my October wrap up. So the next one is a very, very well-known book. It definitely gives me autumn vibes, and especially October vibes, considering, what the plot and the characters are built around. But that is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. Now, I own all of the books. Kingdom of the Feared, the final book in the trilogy, just released at the end of September, so I haven't read it yet. But Kingdom of the Wicked is the first book. Kingdom of the Cursed is the second book in the series. And you are following Amelia. And Amelia is, trying to figure out what happened to her sister. She ends up summoning one of the princes of hell, which is Wrath. And she's not supposed to do that. She's been told her whole life, don't ever summon a prince from hell. And she did. And so she tries to keep it a secret from her family. And so she's working with Wrath to kind of figure out what's going on, not just with her sister, but I guess there's other things going on in hell and things based around that. And so they're both kind of working together to solve this mystery. There is romance in here. So they say that it starts out YA, but I would very much say that this would be new adult, if anything, because the context and the plot and the characters and the themes in this book are definitely very dark, much darker than what I would ever classify as YA. So if you have any trigger warnings, for all of these books, definitely check out trigger warnings, but especially for Kingdom of the Wicked, because I would not classify it as YA. But Wrath and Amelia are one of my favorite character couples that are throughout all of these books. And so I would say if you want a autumn read that gives you a little bit of spooky vibes because you got a Prince of Hell, but not something that is horror, then definitely pick up Kingdom of the Wicked series. It is absolutely wonderful. The next one that I would definitely say to pick up is one of my newest books that I got in one of my book boxes, but it is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This book gives you all of the autumn vibes, all of the spooky vibes for October. It is absolutely wonderful. I had such a great time reading this book. The atmosphere, the character development, everything about this book really, really was good. It's going to be one of my top favorites of 2022 as of right now. I don't really foresee that being taken off of there. So if you are wanting something that is going to give you the autumn and spooky vibes, that is going to set you in that mood for the rest of the month, pick up Belladonna. It is absolutely amazing. So then the next book that I read was another recent book that I got out of a book box. And I'm going to tell you what, most of the time my book boxes come in, and I wouldn't say most of the time, but sometimes they come in and they give me a book that I typically wouldn't go for or that I typically wouldn't read because either it's a YA, like a lower YA that really doesn't have a lot of the plot and character development stuff that I look for, but also, sometimes it's even genres that I won't even read. So sometimes it's hit or miss, but these book boxes, especially Fairy Loot, is coming out with some amazing books. So I'm loving what they're sending me. I'm devouring them within the first week of getting them. But the next one that I have is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This book is definitely all your cozy autumn vibes. You are on an island and you are following two characters where a murder happens, and then one of the characters is shunned off of the island, never to return, but then 14 or 15 years later he has to come back because his mother had died, so she wants to be buried on the island. And you have magic, you have a murder mystery, you have a little bit of romance in here. I will say that there were some aspects of the book that really didn't drive the plot home for me. But overall, this book was so good. It was one of those that I just wanted to get a blanket and I just wanted to curl up on my couch and just devour it. However, today is our first day of a cold day, so I didn't get to have all of the cozy vibes reading this, but this book definitely gave me all of them, and so it made up for the lack of what I could do physically. And then the next one, I definitely would classify this as a cozy vibe because it is fantasy, and I always think that fall and winter are where I devour a lot of my fantasy books because there's just something about getting lost in a big, huge world and, following these characters along their quests and their character arcs. And, because you can't just go outside and just play or whatever. So you're wanting to sit inside. You're wanting, that time to be taken up. And so fantasy is whenever I devour it during this time. But These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan. This book definitely gives me a lot of autumn vibes because, you are kind of in a mystery. You're trying to figure out, like what happened to her sister. You're trying to find out, what she has to do with any of the fairy realm and why she is so important in it. And then you have two main characters. You have a prince and you have an outcast. And along the way, it's kind of like a love triangle. And so you're following her through all of this. And it gave me such cozy vibes because the characters, the way they interact with each other, the world around it was nothing but just a cozy time for me because it was very easy to read, very easy to understand and follow. And the final book, because this is a duology, the final book, which was called These Twisted Bonds, just came out a few months ago. So you don't have to wait forever to wrap up this story if you end up liking this. It is quite a good read. I absolutely love the duology overall, one of my favorite series that I've ever read. And so if you want a good book to curl up to, but you don't want the spooky vibes, you want more of just like kind of a cozy read where you're learning about, a fae realm, a mystery, and have some romance in there, this is a great, great book to pick up. And then let's get a little dark, shall we? Because let's face it, autumn, October, there is, spooky vibes, but also dark themes. So the next one that I would honestly recommend is Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. This duet, Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline, is quite dark. There are a lot of trigger warnings. You really need to check up on this before you read it if you haven't read it yet. But it's kind of like a stalker romance, but in like a haunted house type of feel. And so I really enjoyed this duet a lot, but it has, like I said, quite a few dark themes to it. So definitely pick it up. But if you want a good read that has quite spicy romance in it for October, definitely pick up Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton, as long as the trigger warnings don't affect you too much. Then on to my next one, which these are definitely getting into my spooky vibes, my darker themed vibes, but that is Shadow Kissed by Rebecca Garcia. This one, again, check trigger warnings because there are quite dark themes in it. I would say the very first book doesn't have as many dark themes, but you go on to Midnight Crown, the second book in the series that just came out in August, quite dark. There's, blood play, just to name one. So you definitely want to make sure that you check the trigger warnings for this. But this one is about vampires, and this one is, the very first book isn't quite spicy, but it does get spicy in the second one. So if you're wanting a spooky vibes about vampires, a really good romance story, but the world is like just creepy and there's a lot of, things that happen, and there's like a mystery as well involved in this, because I think autumn vibes and I think spooky vibes, I always think mysteries. So a lot of these books that I'm recommending have a mystery element to it. It may not be the prominent part of the whole book, but there is a mystery part to it. So definitely pick up Shadow Kissed by Rebecca Garcia if you want your vampires and if you want some spice. And then the next book is about witches, and it's Briar by Casey Bond. This book is a great, great read. And I really like, how it says sometimes witches hunt their own. This was an excellent read for me. I had read it quite a while back, probably whenever she had first came out with it, and I just loved it. I have read it multiple times. I was very happy that I got to meet the author at Author in the Bluegrass so she could sign my copy. But this is a really good read. Witches and October and stuff go hand in hand. So if you want a good read for that, definitely pick up Briar, because I really feel like it's going to give you all of those vibes that you're looking for at this moment. And then the last book that I want to talk about is going to be more of a palette cleanser. So it's not going to be dark. It's not going to be, like giving you all of those dark elements, those spooky elements or anything like that. But it definitely goes along with autumn vibes. And that is The Worst Story Ever, written by Nicole Wells. Now, this book is a murder mystery with comedy and paranormal romance. So there's a lot of genres mashed up in here that you typically wouldn't think go together, but it's done very well. And what I really like about this is whenever you get done reading all of your dark romances, all of your spooky vibe books, pick this one up. It's not very big, but it's going to cleanse that for you and give you more of an uplifting, cozy vibe where you're trying to solve a murder mystery and you're laughing along the way. And then there is some spice in here, so definitely check trigger warnings. But, if you want to end your October going into November with maybe more of a comedic relief book, pick this one up because it definitely will not disappoint. So those are my 10 autumn spooky vibe recommendations. I don't think I'm going to be able to hold all of these up, but we're going to try. And if you have read any of these or want to read any of these, definitely make sure that you are commenting below. Follow me on Instagram. My description is down below in the description box. You can follow me on my author services page and my Goodreads reviews. So definitely check those out. But these are my 10, I did it, my 10 recommendations for the autumn and spooky season. And like I said, like this video, subscribe so you don't miss any of my content. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you plan on it. I want to know your thoughts, how you liked it, what you didn't like about it. And until next time, everyone, I hope you have a great day. Bye.